Standing at life's crossroad, the burning question lingers. How do I invest the next year of my life? I'm thinking about investing in myself over the next year or so. I want to take a counseling or communications course. I want to improve my skills. I want to be a better communicator, and I want to be more accomplished. I want to possibly take on counseling skills. Well, this is the video for you. Accredited paths seem very conventional, but what if there's more to the story? In the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to delve into the untapped potential of non-accredited communication and counseling courses. It's not just a video. This is your guide through the mystery of possibility. Join me, and together, let's uncover the unconventional routes that people take that could redefine the next chapter in your life. Be ready to embark on a journey of personal and professional discovery. Welcome to our channel, awakenability.com. Today we're going to unveil the unique advantages of non-accredited communication and counseling courses. Sit back, relax, and get ready to discover the hidden gems of possibilities and choices that you may not have known existed. We've surveyed the cost of counseling degrees in Australia, the UK, Canada, and the United States of America. In Australia, the courses that we looked at averaged approximately $43,000 for a counseling degree. In Canada, the average was a bit lower at around $30,000 for a counseling degree. In the United States, the average was higher, around $50,000 to $60,000 for a counseling degree in America. In the UK, in pounds, we were looking at around £24,000. That's approximately equivalent to 46,000 in Australian dollars, or around 30,500 in the US. Obviously, it's very expensive and quite a huge personal investment to take a counseling degree. If we're looking at non-accredited programs, we have to understand where they're coming from, I suppose, and what they'll give you in the end. When you're looking at any course, you want to look at the course outcomes. The course outcomes define the goals of the program, but also where you'll stand at the end in terms of skills and capacities. The thing is, accredited programs are so expensive in part because they need to meet national and or state-based standards. They're usually, or could be in part, funded by state-based systems. And if there's student loans involved, these are usually subsidized at some level, although this is not always the case. Likewise, accredited programs have reputations to uphold, I suppose you could say, and they have established faculty. The cost of the salaries of those people who are working the program are probably the most dominant principle that defines the cost differential between non-accredited and accredited programs. Accredited programs would get you standing in the key professional associations. Those associations may also charge certain fees to accredited programs so that they can be evaluated from year to year. And those accreditation fees and evaluation processes within the university sectors in particular can be quite hefty in terms of the cost for the institution, and as such loads on a lot of cost to the students who are taking that via the tuition fees. Also, you have to consider that brick and mortar institutions have to pay for lights and heating and upkeep of buildings and structures and staff and a whole range of other liabilities and overheads that non-accredited programs may or may not have. In many situations, non-accredited programs, particularly now, as the evolution of distance education and online training has emerged, the non-accredited programs may have very little overheads, so they may only be paying certain levels of salaries of the people who are teaching in their programs, and those teachers may actually own the programs or the structure of the programs, for example, the websites that house those programs and the overhead costs of these functions of websites, etc., and all of the materials that are involved in the programs, which could be delivered via electronic downloads and PDFs and whatnot, may be quite minimal. And even the case may be that a non accredited program would save you substantial money that you would be paying in published textbooks, in actual physical books that may be required in many of the brick and mortar institutions. Now, the quality of these different programs varies so greatly, it's very difficult to evaluate. In one sense, non-accredited programs could give you tremendous, tremendous value for money because the individuals who are teaching the programs, who have developed them, may be active professionals in the field right now, and they may be writing the program curriculum and teaching within that program based on their current knowledge of what's being practiced right now in terms of the coalface, as we say in Australia, the current and most valuable information from everyday practice in the field. And sometimes that level of training and expertise is quite dynamic and really worth the value. So, on the other hand, you may have faculty in the brick and mortar institutions that are really up to date and very current, but you may also need to consider that once a person becomes a faculty member in most academic institutions, their life changes quite dramatically. And I've been there, I've taught within the university sector for a good 20 years, the first 10 years being full time as a faculty member, and then part time for another 10 years. And during that time, I realized that my professional skills may be diminishing because I wasn't practicing on a daily basis, and I wasn't necessarily keeping up with my skills, and I couldn't because of the demands of the academic system on my time and my career. The dominant focus was on teaching and research, not on clinical practice. Various programs and various institutions have very different sensibilities and rules around these issues. So in each case, you really have to do your own research. Today, we're talking about the possible advantages of non-accredited programs. The first of these is flexibility, actually. Non-accredited courses allow you to learn at your own pace. They may fit your busy schedule more readily. Whether you're a working professional or you're a stay-at-home parent, non-accredited courses may give you the freedom to study when and where it suits you. Non-accredited programs help you to explore creativity at different levels where accredited programs may not do that as readily. Non-accredited courses offer a unique platform for individuals to express creativity openly, from exploring innovative communication approaches and techniques to finding unique approaches to counseling. These courses may help you to tap into your creative potential. Non-accredited courses may focus on practical experience as well, a lot more than the academic and theory-based programs you'll find in the accredited streams. The non-accredited courses could provide hands-on training that might empower you in real-world situations and skills. We've found personally that non-accredited training within the workplace sector is quite dynamic, and many of our programs that we've developed have emerged out of workplace training, which means that they are very current and very involved in the challenges that people face in day to day life and day to day work situations. Through practical experience and case studies, you gain practical knowledge and skills. Often, the non accredited program can be more experiential in the learning approach. Another advantage is that non accredited courses could offer a supportive learning environment in a number of ways. You may have the opportunity to connect more directly with like minded individuals and experienced professionals. You may be building a network with your peers and mentors in a more dynamic way that's enhancing your learning journey as you go along and prepares you in some way in a more practical sense with your work after you finish your program. Non-accredited courses offer affordability as well. We haven't costed a range of non-accredited courses. However, we're aware that the non-accredited communication, personal development, and counseling type courses can run somewhere between $500 for a mini course to around $5,000 for a certificate or diploma. And it really depends on what's involved, how long it takes, and what resources may have been involved in creating the program. The affordability question is quite an interesting one. These courses often come at a fraction of the cost, which you might compare them to the accredited programs. But if you're looking for quality education, you need to consider a number of questions. Does the non-accredited course meet your needs? Will it lead to the outcomes that you desire? Will it lead to the status that you're looking for in terms of your counseling practice, if that's where you're heading? These are really quite important questions. Another illustration is that the non-accredited program offers a diversity of learning paths as compared to the accredited programs. And this is simply because the accreditation bodies offer a core curriculum basically for the programs. The core curriculum is established within the professions or the professional bodies. So the American Association of Counselling, for example, or the Australian Counselling Association, or the British Association of Counselling would have their various core requirements and standards. The programs must comply with those standards to attain their accreditation. Often, because the core curriculum is so extensive and detailed, those programs struggle to create a sense of diversity and choices for the students involved. However, non-accredited programs don't have those problems, in a sense, or they don't have that large challenge to meet the accreditation core curriculum requirements. Therefore, non-accredited programs could focus in on one specific area. For example, if you really wanted to become a trauma relief counselor, or you've really wanted to focus on psychological healing or spirituality in counseling, you might find a non-accredited program that focuses in depth in those areas and may lead to certain types of, I would say, marginal accreditation in the sense that there may be specific and smaller professional bodies that could provide a level of accreditation at the end of your program. In other words, you can probably get public liability and professional liability insurance to practice once you finish those non-accredited quote unquote programs. Again, you have to do your research. You really do, because each of these scenarios is different and you have to ask the questions and make sure that you get the correct information to get your answers before you invest in the program. Diverse learning paths can highlight many things. We are looking at dynamic and practical approaches that offer you, the individual, the ability to customize your program that's based around your interest and goals. Another possibility is practical skill building. Some non-accredited programs really focus on experiential learning and practical skill building or capacity building, as we call it. Capacity building looks at building your sense of applying the principles of communication and counseling in everyday life, in relationships, and the real issues that you face. Another good advantage of non-accredited programs is that they can be community-centric in their approaches. There's also Christian-based programs and spiritual-based programs that also have a very strong community element to them. The community approach can lead on to a number of advantages for a person that's studying communication and counseling skills. These can provide valuable personal and social and relational insights about how to learn and contribute to your community in a positive way. I noticed, particularly when I was looking at the United States models, that it appeared to me that the state-based counseling type programs looked like they might have been subsidized by the state government because it was a lot less expensive for an individual living within that state to get that program. If you lived out of state, the cost was exponential. And I think that bodes for probably a very community kind of approach to those programs. Another possibility with non-accredited programs is the flexibility and accessibility. Accessibility is looking at the formats for learning, and a lot of non-accredited programs are fairly flexible in their delivery mode. So they can be fully online, partly face-to-face. They might be partly correspondence, etc. So there's a number of models out there. Non-accredited programs may also help you to learn communication skills that are designated to be more engaging and relevant to everyday life. The content may be tailored to meet the needs of individuals who want to deepen their counseling skills beyond the traditional classroom setting. Non-accredited programs may also be more dynamic and interactive in their learning approaches and their strategies. They may allow participants to move beyond being passive learners and theory learners to engaging in the practice of communication. They may actively engage in discussions and case studies and collaborative projects to reinforce their understanding. Of course, this can be very true in the accredited system as well. Non-accredited programs may also offer opportunities for networking and collaboration opportunities. They may have an emphasis on the networking aspects. They may be participant-driven in the sense that peer groups may be involved more often in the non-accredited field. The online environments that they may work in, for example, may be more flexible and more interesting and engaging. Sometimes the brick and mortar institutions are limited in what they can do, and they have heavy confidentiality and restrictive practices that disallow a number of creative options that currently exist in the non-accredited and online and distance learning environments. There may be real-life application projects involved in the non-accredited programs that may not exist in the accredited programs. There may be ways of bringing in practice examples and volunteers into the non-accredited training environment. There may be engaging workplace training-based modules or interesting aspects to a work-based approach to learning skills. Non-accredited programs may be co-designed by the lecturer or instructor with yourself as a student and or with your supervisors in your workplace. Non-accredited programs may provide recognition for informal and personal learning over time. They may take into consideration your experience in previous years and in volunteer work to a greater extent than can be allowed in the accreditation pathways. They may recognize the value of informal learning and life experience. Participants with varied backgrounds can contribute their unique perspectives to the learning community within the non-accredited environment. Finally, there may be a continual personal and professional growth component to the non-accredited environment, and this could emphasize that your course and the support that you have from your instructors would involve a personal and professional development growth plan. The participant may be able to choose in these situations the modules or workshops that are based more on your interests and needs. You may have more of a curricular choice as well as to what modules or certificates you might take within your program if it leads to a diploma. Again, your certificates, diplomas, or possibly even a degree length program may be delivered in a non-accredited environment. By articulating these points, it's very interesting, and you convey a sense that there's advantages and disadvantages possibly to every model that is out there, whether it's accredited or non-accredited, whether it's a lengthy program or a brief program, who's delivering the program and what their background and interests are, and why they are engaged in their instructional role. Motivations of the individuals involved and the relationships that you form with those individuals will vary, and it depends a lot on where they're coming from and where you're at the moment. You have to decide for yourself what is the most appealing option for you in your situation, in your culture, in your family environment, and in your values and beliefs and attitudes. There is a lot of dynamic and accessible and flexible programs out there now, particularly online. And a lot because of the online environment, there's a myriad of choices. I think it's important that you weed through the choices and come to a sense of what is good for me and what's timely. What's good for me right now might be different than what's good for me in a year or 2 years' time. Some non-accredited programs may take a couple of months to complete. Others may be more lengthy personal development or professional development programs. They may span over 1 year. They may provide flexible options in terms of how you complete those programs. A number of programs now emerging in the current educational online environment are video-based, with less text, less reading, less materials that are required to study, and the video components of these programs can be fairly dynamic and engaging because you're working with that individual as they present with the video, and you're doing your work and your reflections at your end. Sometimes these online courses these days involve seminars that are hosted online with tools like Zoom for teleconferencing online. And these can provide webinars and whatnot and seminars, group activities perhaps also, or one-on-one or one-to-one meetings with your instructor to work through components of the program. You may have opportunities online to work with another communication or counseling student who's engaged also in that learning to go through different activities or to learn particular types of skills together through the online connection, through the video conferencing. So there can be a wide range of options and opportunities, and the expectations at the moment, I think that people have vary greatly because the programs vary tremendously. And what you see up front and what's on the prospectus or the curriculum as it appears online is not usually what you'll experience or get once you're inside of that program. So it can be very difficult to get information in that sense because programs and institutions, schools, and individuals that are training online as consultancies or small operations, for example, they may or may not feel comfortable putting too much information online because what happens, it's copied very quickly, especially if it's a forward leaning and current contemporary program. It can very quickly be copied and reproduced. And so there's copyright issues and whatnot that major institutions also engage in a behavior that is protective of their information. So getting in there and interviewing faculty or giving them a ring or calling people up or finding out what's going on or visiting the campus in those cases can be advantageous because you'll get a sense of the culture and of the people involved when you meet them a lot more than what you'll see in their online materials before you enter into the program. The other thing I might just say is that once you get into the program, evaluate, continue to evaluate. Is this really for me? Can I put up with this? Can I really engage with this? Is this dynamic enough for me? Is this what I was really looking for? And if it's not, decide early on. You can always leave the program. You can always get some level of a refund, usually depending on the institution and or the program and their policies. Refund policies for smaller programs may be less flexible, in fact, but at least with the larger programs, you might only be paying for one course or unit and you can give it a try. And if you don't like the feeling you get from the overall program, that might be it for you and you'll move on. It's up to the people involved in the program to be there for you as well, to help you with your needs and answer your questions. And if that's not happening, that's such a basic issue that it's better probably to dust to dust your feet off and to keep walking and find another place that may be more engaging and more interested and invested in your well-being and development. I think these are some of the key principles while looking at both accredited and non-accredited programs. At awakenability.com, we have a number of programs that are in the running for being launched in the next few months. We're launching a certificate in animal assisted therapy, which is quite a beautiful program that we've designed specifically for the animal assisted therapy associations that exist in Australia. We were invited this year to speak to their national conference. And so we developed a particularly appealing program to their membership, which focuses in on Australian case studies and involves behavior support and a focus on autism and how assistance animals, particularly canines, are engaged with in specialist ways to assist with autism support. We're also launching a number of certificates that lead to a diploma in behavior support practice. And this is quite an interesting and dynamic program. It's made up of 4 different certificates, each with their own emphasis. There's an introductory certificate. There's a certificate that looks at standards, national and international standards using Australia as a case study, and it's applicable to people in other countries as well. Then we look at behavior support practice, and there's another certificate that looks at developing motivational behavior support plans and applying those skills to ourselves personally. So the diploma then comprises the 4 certificates, which can be taken in any order, and together they make up a diploma in behavior support. Again, developed in a workplace training environment where we work with families and parents and disability support workers and mental health staff and psychosocial coaches. And all of these individuals are involved in a day-to-day practice in implementing behavior support. So this program is really highly relevant and timely. There's nothing really that exists like it in Australia. And certainly, I don't know of any program that exists like it internationally. The other thing that we'd like to just point out is depending on the location you're in, the programs are staged in Australian dollars, and that may make a difference for your exchange rates. So people in the UK and or US or Canada or in other countries may find a distinct savings if you look at the prices of the Australian program versus the programs you may get in your own country. It's been so lovely to talk to you today about these issues and possibilities. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and listening to this stage. And we hope to meet you at Awaken Ability Con, our project where we engage with dynamic creation learning programs. We hardly even call them courses, although they are. We prefer to look at them as experiential personal development opportunities that engage with a very strong level of professional development as well. And the people that come to our programs are highly interested in gaining current skills. They're not so much interested in learning theory. They want to be able to learn skills that they can apply in their everyday life and in their work right now. So their managers and employers are not so much interested in the accreditation levels. Most of these people that come and study with us are parents, for example, who want to learn how to work with their child who has autism. Or we work with disability support workers who already have a Certificate 3 or a Certificate 4 in disabilities or another social services field. We work with counselors, psychotherapists, psychologists also, who already have their foundational degrees. So we're not into those more central unaccredited models. I think part of the reason why we developed this video discussion was to just convey the diversity of richness that exists out there in all of the different approaches and models to learning. And I think if you take it in this way, it's not really about it's not about competition, it's about communication. It's not about who's better than who. It's more about what is the integrity and authenticity and value of the program that you want to consider, that you want to take. What is the position of the individual who's delivering that course or that program? Where are they coming from and what are they offering? I think when that becomes more clear to you, you get a very strong sense that this is either for you or it's not for you. And I think that's the most valuable thing of all. You find that many people will hide behind their roles, particularly in the communication and counseling and more professionalized domains. The role and the theory becomes the predominant culture. And I think in some ways this is not a very positive and not a very generative environment to be in, both for faculty and for students. I think when we can be real, get beyond our roles that we play, and get to the heart of the human dilemma, this is really what counseling and communication skills are all about. This is why working with teams within an organization, within executive teams, within business structures, is really a dynamic and invigorating process. Because when you work through issues together in your relationships and you learn practical skills and how to resolve conflicts that arise, you realize that those conflicts are just opportunities waiting for you to have a new perspective. The opportunities are the parts of us that emerge and come up that give us struggle, that give us angst, that give us challenges to overcome. And when we embrace those challenges with new perspectives, we come to terms with parts of ourselves and parts of our relationships that wake us up, that help us to grow, that engage us in a new learning process. And it's so exciting and dynamic when we take things from this more positive, generative, and nurturing point of view. This is what life is really all about. And I hope that there's something that you find in any of the programs that you take in the fields of communication and coaching and counseling skills. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been so enjoyable. Have a great day.